Yo, yo, yo! Happy hump day today. Yesterday,
Finally. Yeah.
premature hump day. I got super excited. Welcome to Go FUD Yourself.
She said.
That is what she said, probably. Episode 31. We're moving along. JD Gagnon here. Good friend Kiara, how you doing?
I am wonderful. Weirdly slow news day in a way, like really fuddy articles, but not a lot of new news. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Well, we got Binance because we got to keep talking about Binance until the end of our lives now. If we don't want to talk about Binance anymore, we can talk about Do Kwon. And then the US dollar and how in the crypto arms race, it's going to die. It's just a fact. It's going to die. And and then we have some really interesting articles about Africa becoming the next Silicon Valley. So we'll explore that a little bit. We can talk about ETH if we want. I'm ready for Chapella. It's going to be the festival of the summer. And scams. We got a couple scams.
Whoop, whoop. Let's do it.
You ready? You ready to go?
Ready to go. All right.
I'm also jamming to that now every day.
I know, right?
On the weekend, I just have to play the song to like get up.
Yeah, so you feel like you're like in the groove. Yeah. So another thing that we're not really going to talk about today yet because it hasn't completed, but on YouTube you can watch the Fed being investigated by whatever committee oversees the Fed. I'm not sure, but anyways, it was kind of interesting today. A lot of blame is going towards Twitter, social media for the problems. At least the parts that I've watched today. Kind of, yes, of course, that's a piece of what led to the run on assets and so on. The other one is crypto billionaires. Like they've mentioned crypto billionaires a bunch of times, and how any of this banking problem is the fault of crypto, A, is ridiculous, and B, a couple of billionaires in crypto don't have enough financial might to ruin global banking. So,
I saw some tweets on that last night, and they were also very funny. There were things like, are overestimating the size of the crypto sphere. If only 100 people sell, that has a huge, massive impact on my personal portfolio. I was like, okay, well, stop tweeting about it and go drain your portfolio.
Well, and it depends what assets you're in, because I mean, if 100 people sell small amounts of something, you're in a shitcoin. If your portfolio is significantly impacted.
So probably not where the billionaires are, except I guess most.
Well, you never know. Some of them became billionaires by investing in shitcoins. Anyways, okay, let's big bad Binance. Let's do it.
Are you afraid? Are you afraid of Binance? Is
no.
CZ gonna come blow your house down?
No, I mean, okay. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Obviously, it's kind of like something that everybody expected was inevitable. I think anybody that's been paying attention should have expected something like this was going to eventually happen. Again, if Binance for some reason was to be shut down or to have like some crazy punitive, that could be short-term, seriously problematic for the space. So definitely something to pay attention to. But again, this is kind of another one of those like large.
But what you're talking about isn't FUD. What you're talking about is risk management. If my primary holding and exchange platform goes down, how will that impact my assets and my day-to-day trading? But what the news is talking about is that CZ is Chinese.
Yeah. So as far as I know, now don't get me wrong, I don't have any like tracers on CZ. Obviously, I have no idea specifically where he is. As far as I understand, he's been in Dubai for quite some time.
I think 2 years now.
Yeah, like quite a while. And he, as far as I understand, remains in Dubai for a couple of reasons. Non-extradition with both China and the US. And it's a more favorable regime, which we'll talk about later in the crypto arms race. Maybe not specifically about Dubai, but we have talked about it. They are figuring regulatory structures out in Dubai to really encourage larger participants like that to move to the UAE. So anyways, again, we did talk about this yesterday. There is some weird racism about this whole thing because he's of Chinese heritage. He must be connected to the CCP still. And there's probably connections. The problem with this is that since day one, the cap table and the ownership structure of Binance has been largely a secret to most people. There's been a lot of it that's been redacted and withheld in different things and potentially misreported, not necessarily malfeasance, but it's been misreported somewhere many times. So no one really knows. And so what they're probably finding out here is that at some point in time, of course, there was probably some deep connections to Asia. There still is. I mean, there's a lot of people that work for Binance that are of Asian heritage. Like to think that not a single person is connected to the CCP in one way or another is ridiculous. To think that the CCP controls Binance, that's a totally different story. I don't buy that. That's very fuddy until we have some sort of meaningful evidence that suggests that. Like, and why anybody's worried about that right now, I don't know. What is important, you mentioned something about like risk management at the beginning. What is important about this is that something like Binance, the contagion effect of Binance having significant problems would be far broader than just your assets on Binance. So pretty much the entire space would get crushed in the short term, of course, until a new alternative emerges. But Coinbase is really starting to expand globally now too, to fill that void slightly. And they're working deeply with the UK and with the EU regulators. Currently, I think at the end of last week, 3 or 4 of the executive team, including Armstrong, were over in the UK, speaking to policymakers and lawmakers, et cetera. So, I mean, as with anything, when a void is created, there's momentary panic, but someone will rise to the occasion and fill the void. Huobi, everybody thought that when Huobi was going through all those problems, they had internal stuff going on, and who knows. Everybody thought, oh shit, this is number 2 exchange in the world. Crypto's dead. Not really. Huobi didn't kill crypto. It sucked, but then it gets sucked up by KuCoin and Binance and Coinbase and Kraken and the others. So it's the bigger problem, I think, is still the quasi attack on and off ramps into fiat. That's we talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, but that's really where this banking crisis affects crypto in an overweighted fashion relative to everybody else. Because the first thing that these banks jump on, because everybody seems to want to blame this on crypto, which it has absolutely nothing to do with crypto, like zero. But everybody wants to blame it on crypto. And so the easiest, lowest hanging fruit is for these banks to say, okay, we're just done doing crypto. And I think that part of that is maybe by design. I mean, again, I'm not quite tin hatting choke point 2.0 like you've seen making its rounds on crypto Twitter, but there really is a non-zero problem here, that it's only going to get worse, most likely. So shoring up banking partners, diversifying amongst banks is critically important. I mean, we do almost everything without banks. We keep pretty much everything on chain. And so there's some really cool, quick shout out. I have no skin in the game here, but to Spritz Finance, they're doing something really cool where
they actually really
yeah, like they can auto pay your bills. They can have recurring bill payments directly from your crypto wallets. And they do all the back end work, immediate bill pay. Like it's awesome. Actually kind of amazing. So Spritz Finance, check them out. Great guys. Again, I have no horse in that race, so this is just something that I am really impressed with at the moment.
Before we move on from CZ, from Binance, I'm just going to step up on my soapbox really briefly about critical thinking and FUD and anti-racism, which is, if you are watching the TikTok case, if you are watching the Binance case, if you are watching the Do Kwon case, if you watch all of these and you find yourself really hating on any of these individuals or any of these organizations, or finding yourself fearful or uncertain about these organizations, I would suggest checking your implicit bias so that you can actually look at it critically. Everybody has implicit biases. Everybody has stereotypes and racism and misogyny and sexism kind of built within us. And those things are learned behaviors, and they can really hinder how you react to this news. And that's why we've called this Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Binance. That's why we're talking about it, is Is he linked to the CCP? I can't tell you for sure, but why is that the first thing you thought of, right? So really do try to check your implicit bias here. Take a look at Stop Asian Hate if you find yourself really fearful of these particular players, and read these without that lens, right? Take a look at this, think about it from a risk management perspective instead of from that personal perspective.
Our media, now don't get me wrong, I am not a supporter of the CCP, okay, at all. But our media has scapegoated China a lot. Like, they're pretty much to blame for anything ever that goes wrong pretty much everywhere globally, except for right now, Russia is also to blame. But
right. And they're working together, so.
Yeah, of course. And the CCP, like, there's never-ending claims that the CCP has hundreds of thousands of operatives in the United States. Like, there's absolutely zero proof of this. I'm sure there's some speculative proof, but I don't think anything has been like undeniably proven. And all it's doing, again, I definitely don't want to talk about this bullshit school shooting too deeply, but what happens is when you vilify people and you like when the narrative is so consistently negative towards a group, then that group starts to act as if they are a villain.
Or at least our perception has that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I guess this isn't a direct parallel with the shooter and the LGBT trans nonsense, but the thing is, like, you vilify a group so deeply, and you keep telling them publicly, all the activists are telling all these trans people that there's genocidal maniacs. Everybody that doesn't affirm them is genocidal. What? Like, no one thinks trans people should be killed, like, at all.
Lots of people do, but they're individuals and hopefully not a movement, right? Let's move on.
I find that hard to. I find that hard to believe.
That we're facing the same type of bias with the Do Kwon situation. Are people fuddy on this? Because honestly, if you read these news articles today, there's nothing. It's just filler. U.S. and South Korea request extradition of Terra co-founder Do Kwon. He might have to serve time. We already knew this. It's not news.
Yeah.
And the news is we still don't know where he is. Is he hiding from us? What's going on? It's still not news. Right?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, the Do Kwon scenario. I think it kind of goes without saying that obviously the general consensus is the guy needs to be held accountable for what he did. And he kind of thumbed his nose going on Up Only and going on different podcasts, kind of similar to what Kyle and Su Zhu are doing from 3 Arrows right now. If you follow Twitter, they're posting photos of them living lavishly in the Middle East and all this other shit, which is like very thumbing their nose, in my opinion, at all the people that they effectively stole or defrauded for billions of dollars. Like, is kind of insane. And Do Kwon was no different. Not to mention, even before the Terra Luna collapse, he was the most vocal, more or less putting the middle finger up against, towards U.S. regulators, saying, "I'm not American, so go for it." Well, the obvious reality there is that it doesn't matter if you're American. I mean, you break significant international laws and people are going to find you, which they have. The weird thing about Do Kwon, we just don't hear a lot about the case. Like, the SEC seemingly hasn't done anything that I'm aware of yet. And South Korea, of course, put arrest warrants out and stuff for him. I would rather him be charged in South Korea. I feel like the penalties and so on will be a hell of a lot more harsh there. But who knows? It is kind of funny. It is kind of funny.
Check your implicit bias before you read these headlines. Free yourself of the FUD. But that definitely doesn't apply to any headline about the US dollar, right?
No.
US dollar is out. US dollar's gone. It's over.
Yeah, done. Dead.
USD's dead.
We got to be careful, I think, because people are gonna take snippets of our of the pod eventually.
Okay, just this whole article is really funny. It's a Forbes article. It's not specifically about crypto at all, but it's literally, if you're someone from Argentina, Venezuela, or Russia, you understand the realities of what can happen when your home currency fails. And I'm like, is there any news in this article at all? Or is this completely conjecture on Forbes? But the essential claim is that with all the banking crises, and with Russia and China and so on and so forth, that the US dollar will lose complete relevance. It will stop being gold backed. Maybe it'll be Bitcoin backed. That's not in the article. But the article goes on to describe how it might fail and then assures us that it will not fail and the US dollar is not dead. So I don't know why articles like this exist other than clickbait, right?
Again, in my opinion, shame on Forbes for publishing this kind of unverified nonsense. Because again, a lot of people trust Forbes because they've been a big name in news for decades. Actually, I remember about 15 years ago, I was at a presentation from Steve Forbes, which was quite interesting, talking about their thesis on news and access to information and unbiased. That has totally gone out the window. Like Forbes is a very biased media outlet that, digital media in the last decade has just completely changed in terms of, how trustworthy a lot of it is, because it's a race now. It's not, let's get a good story, let's publish it before anybody else. Now it's a race. Everybody has the same information and they're trying to publish something ahead of everybody else. Anyways, someone reached out to me yesterday on this exact topic, and it's happened a few times over the last couple of weeks. Hey, I've got my money in XYZ institution. People are telling me that XYZ institution is probably going to go bankrupt on a certain day in August. And I was like, what? Like, anybody that's predicting when this is all going to come to a head is wrong and lying, in my opinion, especially with that specificity. That's crazy. Like a specific day in August? Like, no. Anyways.
But now I'm not going to go camping that day.
Yeah, definitely don't go camping that day. You shouldn't go camping anyways. Why would you pay to live like you're homeless? But anyways, don't get me wrong. Don't get me going on camping. But I think what's important here, like, could the US dollar collapse? Sure, absolutely. It's a very minuscule chance that the currency dies, but it's possible. I mean, if they make far too many wrong steps in consecutively, it's possible that they could lead to hyperinflation. If they lead to hyperinflation, we all know what's going to happen. That is what happened in Argentina, Venezuela, Russia. Totally different economies, totally different governments, totally different macroeconomic conditions. Like, the US banks failing isn't going to just impact the US dollar, it's going to impact global currencies. So maybe it'll put everybody globally into hyperinflation. Like, who knows? Anyways, the point is, if we think for a second that the US government is just going to let the US dollar die without some version of a fight, we could all argue about whether the fight is effective or not. But it's just not going to happen. I mean, in my opinion. Now, could the US dollar come off of its pedestal as the global reserve currency? Yeah. I think that is a more than realistic probability. Personally, that's my opinion. I'm not an economist, but that's just kind of how I feel things might be going. Maybe not now, maybe not this year, but in the next decade or two, I definitely think unless we change the way that we're approaching geopolitics, the US dollar is in fact not going to be the reserve currency, in my opinion.
Does that mean I can talk about the crypto arms race?
Yeah, and it's actually really good. This parlays really well into this. Set it up. Go ahead.
No, I can't go a whole episode without talking about the crypto arms race. This is going to be my claim to fame. My 5 seconds in the spotlight is the crypto arms race. Today's news on the crypto arms race is nothing. Today, quite a few articles came out about Africa being the next Silicon Valley, which one is offensive. Africa is not a small area. To say Africa will be the next Silicon Valley is just so like Euro or North American centric. It's just painful. But what's really interesting is that in a few of these articles, there are some people who are prophesizing that because of the current corruption and because of the difficulty between borders and cross-border payments and that kind of thing, that crypto will reign. Crypto will reign true, and it will be the next big thing. And then after, some interviews with people who actually use crypto in Africa, I feel like they would be a better validator than I might be. They say that this is incredibly unlikely, at least right now, because they don't have great electricity. They have really unstable internet, and many African countries condemn the use of crypto. And so, of course, we might see that one particular area in Africa, perhaps Nigeria, comes out on top in the crypto arms race. But to just say Africa will be Silicon Valley is the most painful statement that I did not expect to have to defund today.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts on this. First of all, I've got some really good friends that run some crypto focused companies over there. Africa DAO, Jambo, Pact, great teams with incredible visions that they're meaningfully delivering on in Africa,
Absolutely.
Focusing on African developers, focusing on African economies. Having said that, I think there is a great opportunity in Africa, without a shadow of a doubt. Remittances, all of the things that we've talked about in previous pods. But where I think this whole theory kind of falls apart a little bit is, again, like you said, the electricity and access to internet is atrocious relative to what we're used to. Now, they're making fairly meaningful strides in the right direction, Starlink and others, to give relatively low cost and consistent access. Obviously, that's important, but the technology required for businesses to accept crypto is, not super cheap and simple. I mean, even a smartphone, and then you need ledgers and to have any sort of security. Like, again, that's a problem. Next thing, dictatorships, authoritarian governments. If we think that there's a choke point 2.0 happening in Western democracies, it's a totally different game over there. Their currencies is how all of these oligarchs and autocrats become wealthy.
Exactly. I'm not going to FUD the concept that we could have any emerging technology come out of Uganda, or Ghana, or anywhere in particular. I just found that the article itself was so vague in general that it was almost rude. And then I found a couple other articles that were also published today, probably from the original article from Cointelegraph, like based on it. But there are other interesting things, right? As you talk about the currency, maybe that does bring us back to the Argentina USD. Maybe our fiat currency and other fiat currencies will die, and that will prevent some of the corruption and dictatorship. Or maybe they will round up everybody who owns Bitcoin.
I mean, philosophically, obviously, it's easy for all of us to sit back and say, hey, like, a global currency that cannot be impacted by government agendas, political agendas, is obviously a benefit. It seems great, but the vast majority of economic development, growth, and sustainability is built on the back of fractional reserve banking, having centralized monetary policy in advanced nations and so on, which is why we see the US being so strong, or at least had been so strong for so long, because we've had, generally speaking, pretty good policies of monetary policy. It really was only in the last 13 years, since 2008, that the wheels fell off the cart in terms of US debt, interest rates, quantitative easing. Like, we effectively printed money nonstop for the last 13 years. Or 15 years, I guess. My math.
You're not supposed to do that? I thought that's why we had money printers.
Yeah, right. Printer go brr for 15 years, which is fucking crazy. Anyways, it's all possible. One more thought on the Africa thing. Another big problem in Africa is personal and financial safety. There's a lot of like militias and all this weird shit that's still happening over there. And so if we're concerned in countries focused on law and order about safety and security of our crypto assets, imagine what it's like where there's very little policing, very little support of that nature. Like, I mean, it's just, we're a few steps away. Will Africa become a powerhouse at some point in the future? Sure. I totally believe so. They have a great population that is still reproducing at an appropriate rate relative to the rest of the world. They have a lot of incredibly intelligent people there, which is what I think is so compelling about a lot of these businesses trying to, work in Africa, because it's changing their economic opportunity drastically. You're finding some of the best committed engineers in the world,
Absolutely.
For fractions of the cost, which is still many orders of magnitude more than they could ever imagine making, which will absolutely shift, in my opinion, society over there. But that doesn't happen in the next year. It's going to be decades before we see that. But absolutely agree. There is opportunity there. It's just not tomorrow. Anyways.
Let's wrap up with some actual news. You want to tell me about MetaMask?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So with all the airdrop hype that's been going on lately, there's been some speculation for the last number of months that MetaMask was going to do an airdrop. And the airdrop was going to be sizable for those of us that have been using MetaMask before we even understood what the hell it was, yada, yada. Like, I mean, I've got 300 plus wallets. Like, it's kind of insane. If there was an airdrop, I think we would maybe all do okay. But anyways, they quashed the rumors about this airdrop, but that has not stopped the scammers. So as far as we understand, based on fairly credible reporting, there is not going to be a MetaMask airdrop. And even if there was, you don't have to sign up to other landing pages, connect your wallet, give permissions, all this other shit. So anytime, if you're seeing any of that, it's a scam. A lot of people, unfortunately, are getting caught by this. There's a reason people do these scams, and that's because others fall for them. So be diligent, pay attention. No MetaMask airdrop as far as we understand right now. And even if there was, you would not qualify for it by doing some of the dumb shit that these scams are expecting you to do. But it's rampant. It's rampant on Twitter. It's rampant on Google Ads. It's rampant on other social. It's rampant on
like ads.
Telegram. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like, you should never click an ad for a crypto platform ever.
That's why we don't.
Yeah, but people still do, unfortunately. Like, we've all fell victim, I think, to this. Maybe not all of us, but many of us. If you've been here long enough, you've done something stupid.
Absolutely.
I've done many stupid things.
I was going to say, I haven't been here that long and I've done stupid things. So
to the tune of many multiple hundreds of thousands I've been scammed out of. So
hold on. Is Wambo, we might be okay? Is that the new WAGME?
I don't know. I have an Avalanche hoodie that I got sewn WAGME on it at the last Avalanche Summit.
Yeah, I remember.
And I don't wear it anymore because it's been nothing but downhill since then, market-wise.
Yeah, it's you. You're an early indicator.
It's probably me. You should counter trade me. I'm like retail. When I get excited and think we're going to make it, it's time to sell.
I'm just saying Wambo. We all might be okay.
We will, maybe okay.
Wambo.
And then one other piece of news, we've talked jokingly about Chapella.
It's the feel-good festival of spring. It's the
This is a big deal, though. I think it's kind of one of the things that's been plaguing the transition to ETH2 to proof of stake. Is everybody that has supported that transition has had their assets locked indefinitely, and no one really knew specifically when it was, when they were going to start to slowly tranche unlocking. Not everybody will be able to unlock their assets all at once, but it's going to start apparently roughly 10:27 p.m. UTC on April 12th. So we're getting real close. I think most people feel that Ethereum is ready for this upgrade. I think a lot of the liquid staking assets, are flying right now just because, in theory, this should encourage more and more people to use liquid staking for Ethereum because there's a way to get it out. There's a way to arbitrage the price difference. There's a lot less concern about a DPEG. There's still concerns about a DPEG, but a lot less. So anyways, this is really exciting. I think, whether you're a maxi or not, I suggest that nobody becomes a maxi of anything. But I mean, Ethereum is here to stay. It's what got most of us started. It's where smart contracts came from, and seeing it upgrade and update and evolve real time without breaking shit while it's still live is a huge testament for some of the brilliant minds in the space and just what we can do going forward. That these ecosystems can evolve. It's not deploy and then wait for someone to fork and improve. It's continuous improvement. It's a process of continuous improvement, and I think this is just. There's so much other nonsense and FUD and bullshit happening in this space. This is something that I think, this is hugely positive and something that I think to a certain extent we should all be grateful for and
it's real. Like we're certain that's real.
Yeah,
which is great in our today's news.
Exactly.
For anybody who's like Chapella, I thought it was a Shanghai update. We did mention on an earlier episode that it's been dubbed Chapella. It's the Shanghai update and the Capella update. They are going out in unison, but they are two different constructs on each. If you want to hear more about that, we can link it below.
Yeah, instead of trying to get into that, good idea. We'll just link it below. All right. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of our time today. As always, smash that shit, the like button, the love button, whatever, share. Make sure that your friends and family can see us too. Every day, same place, all the different venues. Pretty soon, we're going to be on Spotify, Apple Music, and other podcasts.
That's right.
Podcast platforms. I think we're getting pretty close to having enough episodes now. Whoop, whoop. So yeah, check us out. Share the love. Shout out to D-Dog today. I've worn this hoodie before, but it's one of my faves. They just finished an audit for us.
Ooh.
So that's
hey, JD.
exciting.
Go FUD yourself, my friend.
Kiara, go FUD yourself. Have a great day.